Hi children, welcome to my channel Easy Learning. So today I will be dealing with the chapter Heredity, and the previous two chapters video is already uploaded in my channel. The link is given in the description box. So let me move on to the chapter Heredity. Actual name of the chapter is Heredity and Evolution, but the evolution part is deleted. So we will discuss today regarding the topic Heredity. So first, before going to the definition of heredity, in order to explain the definition of heredity, before that, there are certain recognizable features in the human beings. Maybe the height of the person, the color of the hair, the color of the eyes, the color of the skin. So all these recognizable feature, it is known as the character, or otherwise it is known as the trait. It is known as the character, or otherwise it is known as the trait. So these characters, the transmission of these characters from the parents to the offspring, that it is known as what? Heredity. So in a simple manner, we can define heredity as the transmission of the features from one generation to the next generation, or the transfer of the features from one generation to the next generation. It is known as heredity. So that is the definition of heredity. It is very, very important. So you have to concentrate more. Mainly only the important parts I will be discussing. So whatever parts I am covering here, all these are included, or it is repeatedly asked for the board exam. So the board exam of the science subject, it is commencing on the 2nd of March. So only very few days are there for you. So in that particular few days, you have to plan how to cover all the topics. Not only the biology part, the chemistry part and the physics part, you have to cover, and you have to plan in such a manner so that you will be able to go through all the chapters which is involved in this particular subjects. And regarding the definition of heredity, once again I will explain, that is the transmission of characters from parents to offspring. It is known as heredity. So the character means the recognizable feature which is present in the human being or any organism. That is known as the character, or otherwise it is known as the trait. So when we tell regarding the characters are being transmitted from parents to offspring, we cannot tell that they are the identical copies of their parents, isn't it? Even no individual is similar or they are alike. They are not the exact copies of their parents. There are certain changes which is taking place in the offspring or the children, rather than whatever characteristic which is present there in the parents. So those differences which occur in the offspring, it is known as variation. Those differences which is present there in the offspring, it is known as what? The variation. One simple example is that regarding the earlobe. The earlobe, in certain persons, the earlobe it is attached. The earlobe will be attached. Whereas in certain persons, the earlobe will be hanging. The earlobe will be hanging. So we will call it as a free earlobe, and the other one it is the attached earlobe. So these are the both same. That is the outer, the external structure of the ear it is only. But here the main difference was due to some variation in the gene. These two varieties of the earlobe has been occurred in the human being. So it is a type of variation. So 1 year question came for board exam regarding the diagram was given. Image has to be identified and how does it occur? That was asked for a 2-mark question. So regarding the example of earlobe, you have to concentrate in this particular area. So regarding the accumulation of variation, how can you tell that that variation is accumulated? When that variation which is present in the offspring, it has been transferred to the next generation to generation. If that particular variation is being transferred or continued, then we can tell that a particular type of organism has been present in the earth, or particular type of species has been formed in the earth. For simple example regarding bacteria, if the bacteria has got 2 offspring, for example, the bacteria is having 2 offspring, and from that one offspring will be having some variation to withstand the increase in the temperature of the environment. But whereas the other one does not have that variation. So what happens when the changes in the temperature has occurred, then the offspring which did not have that variation cannot exist. Whereas that bacteria which was having the variation of withstanding those drastic conditions in the environment, and that particular trait or the character, if it has been transferred from one generation to generation, then afterwards a new variety or a new type of species of bacteria will be evolved on the earth. which help that particular organism to survive in that particular drastic condition. So, the main advantage or significance of variation it is that it helps the organism to survive in any drastic conditions or changes in the environment. So, that is another one simple example of variation which helps for the accumulation of variation. That is, that particular characteristic or the trait, it will be transmitted from one generation to generation, so that that continuity will be there in the forthcoming generations, and a particular species of that organism will be available on the earth. Okay, so next we will move on to regarding the experiment which was conducted by Gregor Mendel as the father of genetics, because he is the one of the main important scientists who has studied regarding how the characteristics are transmitted from one generation to the next generation. That is, from the parents to the offspring, how the characteristics are transmitted by conducting experiments. So, he has done his experiment with the pea plant. That is, the scientific name of pea plant, it is Pisum sativa. Pisum sativa. So, he has conducted his experiment using the pea plant. So, before moving on to the experiment, there are certain terms which should be familiar to know about that particular experiment. One, it is the chromosomes. It is a thread-like structure which is present inside the nucleus of the cell. Next one, it is the DNA. DNA means it is the genetic material of the transmission of characters. Other than that, another term which comes in the experiment, it is that the dominant gene. Gene also, you know, gene is the unit of inheritance. Next one, it is the dominant gene, and the other one, it is the recessive gene. Dominant gene, and the other one, it is the recessive gene. So, dominant gene is that the gene which decides the appearance of an organism only in the presence, or even in the presence of an alternative gene. That is, even though an alternative gene is there, then also those particular gene which is present, they consider to be the dominant, because that gene, it will be expressed in that organ. So, for example, regarding the height of the plant. So, in that, the tall plants also will be there, the dwarf plants also will be there. So, both are mainly the one characteristic feature, that is regarding the height of the plant. So, in that, even though in the presence of an alternative gene, which is the alternative gene, dwarf is the alternative gene. Even though in the presence of alternative gene, this gene has the capability to give the appearance of that organism or that plant. So, that is, the tall is considered to be the dominant gene. That is why that gene or that character, it is expressed in the particular plant. So, that is meant by dominant gene. The gene which has the capacity or which determines the appearance of an organism even in the presence of an alternative gene. What is meant by recessive gene? Recessive gene means the gene which determines the presence of an organism only in the presence of an identical gene. Identical, same type of gene. That is, if the recessive gene, the characters, in the case of dwarfness, if both the parents, the genes which is being transferred to the offspring, both if it is recessive gene only, then only that character will be expressed in the offspring. Otherwise, if from the father, if the dominant gene is expressed or transferred, and then if from the mother, if the recessive gene is transferred, then the dominant gene will be expressed in the offspring. From the father and from the mother, if both the recessive gene is transferred to the offspring, then only that particular gene can express or show the appearance of that particular organism. Okay, so that is meant by recessive gene. Another term which comes, it is the phenotype and the genotype. So, these terms you should remember because it is very important for the experiment of Mendel. And the crossing of Mendel in the two experiments he is conducting with the pea plants, that is, you should be thoroughly knowing regarding how that cross appears, because based on that lots of questions either for 2 marks or 3 marks or 5 marks question also may appear for board exam. So, here regarding the phenotype and the genotype. Phenotype means the physical appearance of the organism. It is known as the phenotype. That is, we are telling that the particular person is tall or that particular person is short. So, that is the physical appearance. By physically, what we are seeing, based on that the physical appearance, we are expressing according to that. Isn't it? Genotype means the genetic, based on the genes we are expressing. that whether it is the tall or whether it is dwarf. So that is meant by genotype. So when we are crossing the parents or the two plants, when we are crossing, then the father and the mother, the genes, when they are crossed, then what happens when they are crossed together? That is, for example, simple example I will tell regarding when the tall plants, it is crossed with the dwarf plant. Then in the F1 generation, that is the offspring which they get. So that offspring of that first generation, it is known as first filial generation or F1 generation. That is another term which is coming. Then next one it is F2 generation. F2 generation or second filial generation. So regarding the F2 generation or the second filial generation, that is the F1 generation, it is crossed together. That is, whatever offspring which is obtained in the first generation, they are crossed among themselves, and then the offspring which is obtained, they are considered to be the second generation or the second filial generation or F2 generation. So these are the terms which you have to remember under the experiment which is conducted by Gregor Mendel. So he is a father of genetics. Okay. So Gregor Mendel has conducted. So in his experiment, he has explained how the transmission of characters takes place or transfers from parent to the offspring. For that, he has selected what plant? Pea plant. That is, the scientific name it is Pisum sativum. So he has selected pea plant. Why he has selected pea plant? That is very, very important. Always the question is repeated. What are the main reasons to select the pea plant for the experiment? Because Gregor Mendel, he has selected pea plant for his experiment. So here comes a very important question which is oftenly repeated for the board exam. That is, why Gregor Mendel has selected pea plant for his experiment of inheritance. Okay, so he has selected pea plants means mainly based on three reasons. First reason is that it gave a clear-cut in pea plant. Pea plant, it was easy to have the clear-cut differences. And it was it can easily be observed, the whatever differences which takes place in the plants, it can be easily observed. That is the first reason. Then these pea plants are self-pollinating to get the next generation. They have self-pollinating. And the third reason why he has selected the pea plant is that this more generation can be obtained within a short span of time. That is why he has selected. These are the three reasons why he has selected pea plant. And in his experiment, he has taken the characters. One, it is regarding the height or length of the stem, that is tall and dwarf. Then regarding the color of the seed, that is yellow and green, and the shape of the seed, either round or wrinkled, and color of the flower. So these are white or purple. So these are the four main basic characters which he has taken for the experiment of inheritance. So first he has done two experiments, and before that the two experiments, one it is known as the monohybrid cross and the other one it is known as the dihybrid cross. So by hybrid means a new form of plant which is obtained from the different varieties of plant. That is known as hybrid. So that hybrid variety, that in the case of the experiment, he has selected one contrasting character, contrasting character he has selected in the first experiment. That is based on the height of the plant or length of the stem. So that is the tallness and the dwarfness. So single contrasting character only he has selected for his first experiment. So since only single character it is used, it is known as the monohybrid cross. Monohybrid cross. And in the second experiment, he has selected two contrasting characters. One it is regarding the color of the seed and the other one it is the shape of the seed. So since two characters it is involved in the experiment, that is why it is known as dihybrid cross. It is known as dihybrid cross. So monohybrid cross and dihybrid cross. So now I will move on to the monohybrid cross. Oftenly this cross is asked for board exam. So how you should know how the cross is being done. Sometimes the explanation also will be asked. Sometimes only the cross you have to write. It may come for 3-mark question or sometimes it may come for 5-mark question. Okay. With the explanation it will be asked for 5-mark question. Other than that, if only cross is there, or sometimes it may come for case study also. Case study question, it will the paragraph, the content will be given based on the cross, and based on that 4 questions will be there. Each carries 1 mark. The Gregor Mendel, he has taken only single contrasting character. So I will explain regarding the experiment. So he has taken a pure breed tall pea plant and pure breed dwarf pea plant, and then he crossed the tall plant with the dwarf plant. So here the genes always they occur in pairs. So for the tallness, the genes we will write it as capital T, and regarding the dwarfness, it will be written as small t. So here in this regarding the first cross, that is he has crossed the parent plant. The parent plant was one is tall pea plant and the other one it is the dwarf pea plant. So when he crossed, he got the offspring that all the offsprings were tall. Only tall plants he got in the first generation. So when he crossed the tall and dwarf together, he got only tall plants in the first generation. Then hybrid and the dihybrid cross. So in the monohybrid cross, that is he has crossed the parent plant. The parent plant was one is tall pea plant and the other one it is the dwarf pea plant. So when he crossed, he got the offspring that all the offsprings were tall. Only tall plants he got in the first generation. So when he crossed the tall and dwarf together, he got only tall plants in the first generation. Then he made an observation or came to the conclusion that only one character is being expressed in the first generation. One character of the parent only it is being expressed in the first generation. So then what did he do? He self-pollinated the first generation. That is both tall plants which was obtained in the first generation, he self-pollinated that. So when he self-pollinated the first generation, then in the second generation, he got both tall and dwarf plants. So then he came to the conclusion that the one character which was not seen in the first generation, it reappeared in the second generation. So the character which was not seen in the first generation, they were suppressed and they reappeared in the second generation. That is why he came to the conclusion that the character which was observed in the F1 generation, it is known as the dominant trait or the dominant character, and the character which has appeared in the second generation, that it is considered to be the recessive trait or the suppressed character which was reappeared in the F2 generation, it is the recessive trait or the recessive character. That is how he gave an explanation for his experiment, and he came to the conclusion that if total amount of 100 plants he has taken, in that 3/4 of the plant were tall and only 1/4 of the plant was dwarf. So maximum plants, and there was no medium sized plants in between. So all the plants were tall, other than that remaining plants were dwarf. That is, when we tell in the case of percentage, 75% of the plants were tall and 25% of the plants were dwarf in the second generation. That is why he formulated a ratio for this. It is known as the monohybrid ratio, and the monohybrid ratio he has formulated in the case as 3:1, because 3 parts of that particular plant, 3/4 part of the plant was tall and only 1/4 part of the plant was dwarf. So he came to the conclusion and he formulated the ratio, the monohybrid ratio, that is 3:1, and based on this ratio he formulated a law, and the first law of inheritance, it is known as law of segregation. It is known as law of segregation. So the name of the law you should know, the law of inheritance of the first cross or the monohybrid cross. It is known as law of segregation, and the ratio it is, monohybrid ratio it is 3:1. Now I will show you how the cross has to be written. So first, that is why we are using these terms. I told that you should know these terms. So first one, it is regarding the phenotype. So phenotype means the physical appearance of the plant. So we are crossing what? Tall plant into dwarf plant. Tall plant into dwarf plant. Then comes the genotype. So here capital T into small t, small t. Okay. So genes are written in pairs. Then comes the gametes. So we will write that capital T, small t, small t. Now we will cross it. So when we are crossing, this capital T is crossed with this. Again, this capital T is crossed with this. This capital T is crossed with this. And this capital T is crossed with this small t. So how will you write? Capital T, small t, capital T, small t, capital T, small t, and capital T, small t. So this is the genotype, F1 genotype, because it is written F1 genotype, it is, isn't it? So how will you write the F1 phenotype? F1 phenotype is tall, 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 and tall. Okay, so this is regarding the F1 generation. Now what did he do? He has self-pollinated this F1 generation. So we will write it as F2 cross. In that phenotype, F1 phenotype we will write. This is parental phenotype. F1 phenotype, that is, we will write it as tall into tall only. Okay. So next it is F1 genotype. That is capital T, small t, capital T, small t. Next, we will write the gametes. So, capital T, small t into capital T, small t. Now, we will see the crossing. This capital T cross with capital T. This capital T cross with small t. This small t cross with capital T. And this small t, it is crossed with small t. So, how will you write? Capital T. This is capital T, capital T. This it is capital T, small t. This it is capital T, small t. And this it is small t, small t. So, here this is the F2 genotype. This is the F2 genotype. Okay. So, here he has obtained capital T. That is, how will you write the F2 phenotype? Tall. This capital T and small t also we will write it as tall because capital T is considered to be the dominant character. Okay. This is tall. This is tall. And this is small t is dwarf. So, that is how he has calculated the ratio as 3:1. So, this ratio it is known as the monohybrid ratio. Okay. So, tall or in another way also we can write this. How many are there? Only one. And capital T, small t how is occurring in which form? In another type. Even though they are dominant character, we are considering it as tall only. But here two are there. And small t is 1. So, this also can be written as instead of 3:1, 1:2:1 also can be written based on the type of characters which is obtained in the F2 generation. So, this is regarding the monohybrid cross or the first experiment which is conducted by Mendel to explain the characters, how it is being transmitted from the parents to offspring. Okay. So, I hope you all have understood what I have discussed today here regarding what is meant by heredity, what is meant by character, importance of variation with examples of the earlobe. Then regarding the Mendel's experiment, why he has taken pea plant, it is important. You should concentrate in that area. Then certain terms which is coming there in his experiment. Then I have explained the monohybrid cross to explain the monohybrid ratio, and that particular law is known as the law of segregation. So, you should know the law also. So, that law it is known as the law of segregation. So, that is the monohybrid cross. Next comes the dihybrid cross that I will upload in the next video. So, I hope you all have understood this today's topic. So, concentrate in all the areas whatever I have focused in this video. And okay, thank you.